the idea of having smart roadways and smart construction. In other areas of innovations around cities, they'll install pieces of it with an idea of where they want it to go, but it may not be really come to fruition until you have that one piece of technology that can connect it all together. I think we're seeing that with the explosion of AI, of how diverse AI is able to take those interwoven pieces of technology, bring them together, and then look at things in a completely new landscape that city planners are actually like having conversations and taking a step back of, hey, we need to take inventory first of seeing what's here. So I think innovation really at the core of it is an idea and a mindset as opposed to an action taken.
Welcome to the Smart Cities Council podcast. Smart Cities Council is an international organization aiming to create a safer, more beautiful, enabled, and resilient future for everyone, with more than 400,000 members and collaborators across the globe. Today, I welcome Brian Flanagan to the podcast from Ingram Micro. A dynamic and results-driven business development executive, Brian Flanagan thrives on empowering partners and organizations to scale their business in an ever-evolving landscape. A retired U.S. Air Force senior non-commissioned officer, Brian brings 20 years of leadership in personnel management, security operations, and professional development. At Ingram Micro, he leads smart cities, EdTech, and justice and public safety initiatives, driving innovation, co-selling strategies, and strategic partnerships. Passionate about leadership, growth, and transformation, Brian combines operational excellence with relationship building to create lasting impact. His dedication to mentorship, collaboration, and execution makes him a pivotal force in accelerating business success. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Fanni. I appreciate it.
What does smart city mean to you?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it's a really dynamic question too. Depending on what level of or what agency you're talking to, a smart city means a lot of different things. Whether you're talking to nonprofits, police forces, community service folks. So really at the core of what it is, no matter what the definition or framework you want to put around it, it's really about improving people's lives through the use of technology. And that piece of technology can be anything from where you park your car on a busy Saturday street, all the way down to how your first responders can get to you in a time of emergency. So what I love is it's super dynamic and it means tons of different things. But honestly, nobody can really agree on what the definition really is. At least here, not too much.
I can appreciate this confusion because I have been researching smart cities for my PhD in the last 5 years, and there is no one definition. Now, I love that you started with the different levels and agencies, because the examples you mentioned, first responders and smart parking, those are individual elements, and I'm curious whether it's enough to have individual elements to make a city smart.
Yeah, that's such a good question. So when you're thinking about individual elements, I think there's pockets where every city tries to be innovative. When I was in the service, there was a lot of buzzword around the word innovation, which really drilled down to do as much as you possibly can with less. And really what it means is, frankly, in this kind of day and age, really less time. So how much can you do with less time? Not necessarily just less resources like budget or financial constraints. One innovation doesn't make anything change overnight. So the reality is there's a lot of conversation around cities of the future, especially here in the US. What does it really look like? Who's going to benefit from the cities of the future? Is it just folks that drive on highways? Is it folks that work from home? It's so dynamic. So innovation alone or installing smart parking at your airport doesn't make you a smart city. It makes you an innovator. Right. So I think the clerical definition of multitude innovation and what a smart city would be, it's planned small innovations over time. That's going to improve, whether it be a structured approach or it be, hey, we're going to improve our transportation because we're a tourist city. So we want folks that come in on our highways, byways, and flyways, if you will, to experience what technology could be firsthand. That may be their increases first, as opposed to the parking on a rural street or somewhere else, innovation on a baseball field, or even weather forecasting, depending on where your domain you're looking at. So I think it really depends on the city, but I think it's a lot of innovations done over time.
I love that you also mentioned it needs a directing force, a directing vision, that if you want to be a tourist city, then you would improve these elements of the city, not just without any sense and without any action. I believe, or I think that those individual elements can fall off the map. It's not creating a smart city. And you mentioned innovation. Innovation can mean also so many things to so many people. So what does innovation mean to you?
Yeah, innovation means improvement, right? So it's having the idea of what could be there and giving it a shot of trying to create the way forward. Innovation doesn't necessarily have to be the next Mona Lisa. In other words, you don't necessarily have to have the overall picture in mind to start. I've seen plenty of times where, and I think we see this even in construction, the idea of having smart roadways and smart construction. In other areas of innovations around cities, they'll install pieces of it with an idea of where they want it to go, but it may not be really come to fruition until you have that one piece of technology that can connect it all together. So I think we're seeing that with the explosion of AI, of how diverse AI is able to take those interwoven pieces of technology, bring them together, and then look at things in a completely new landscape that city planners are actually like having conversations and taking a step back of, hey, we need to take inventory first of seeing what's here. So I think innovation really at the core of it is an idea and a mindset as opposed to an action taken.
Okay, that was very interesting at the end that you mentioned innovation as a idea and mindset aimed instead of an action. And can you elaborate a little bit more on this? Also with the inclusion. When you mentioned these specific examples, those were iterative innovations on an existing solution or an existing improvement. And I'm curious whether you differentiate between iterative innovation and genuine innovation. That's my judgment on that, but I'm curious whether you differentiate between those two forms, whether we need to differentiate on those two forms, and also what do you mean by that it's more of a mindset than an action?
Yeah, so let me unpack that a little bit. That's a good one. So really what I mean by innovation is more of a mindset than action. It is because the idea is it's not about walking into the room and having the picture or being the city planner or the mayor or whatever your level of authority or leadership may be, saying, hey guys, here's where we're going. Here's where we're charting the course. Really what I believe innovation and why I think it's a mindset is walking in a room and asking what could possibly happen. And the idea of, and this is where I look back, the idea of what AI could be. Ironically, I think we can look to other countries, other geo regions that have taken some of these ideas and in some shape or minds, I think art form. Ironically, I think here in the US, I recently had a conversation with a partner who compared his piece of technology of what it could possibly do to a movie scene. And a movie scene is something that is very artistic, is for entertainment. But ironically, it allowed him as a designer in technology to ask the question of what could possibly be there. And I think so charting the course of, I think that's why I say a mindset, because it can come from multiple places. It doesn't have to come from what's always been done. I'm a military guy, 20 years. One of the words if you really wanted, during that time, my time in the Air Force, if you really wanted to disrupt leadership in a way that was not a very positive way, you would say, you say the phrase of, it's always been done that way. Or instead of saying, what can we do better? What can we do that's faster? What can we do that's more economical? And that's where I think smart cities is really, for some people, it seems overwhelming. The idea of, I need to make my city smart. And then for other people, it's really, you can see them, they almost have this childlike curiosity of, how smart could my city really be? And can I make the flying car? What does that really mean? Obviously, these are things that are out there, but so that's where I think that's why mindset. To unpack that even further, genuine innovation versus stuff that you've already experienced and seen. I think that's the only way we're actually going to get there. We're talking about solving extremely dynamic and complex issues for communities across the US. And the United States itself is very rural in nature. When you start plucking out some of the biggest cities that we have and the most dense population, I came from a very small farming community. That's how I grew up. So very blue collar. That's just what we had. And the needs of that community are extremely different than a metropolitan area. So when we talk about having a smart city, if I were to tell my family, hey, we're going to have a smart city and it's going to be this, and it's not going to make any sense, right? And they're like, how does this help me on the farm? How does this help me I don't understand. And then you ask someone in the subway or you ask someone in New York City of, hey, we're going to make New York City easier, safer, more economical. It's going to have different layers of practicality. So I think you got to approach it from two mindsets almost simultaneously. And I feel like that's why people can't agree on the definition. And not to go back to originally what it was, but if I ask a very rural town, what is the biggest challenges you have for your community, your citizens? And then I ask someone else in Chicago, it's extremely different. Perspectives are different. And then that's where I think we can look at across the globe and see what other areas are doing, get ideas, be inspirational. Hey, this is what could be there. But I think if we lose sight of what pure innovation is creativity. And it's about really what that next evolution could look like. Yeah, I think you're gonna need both, but depending on where you're at.
I love that you just brought in creativity and evolution, because I am a big fan of an conscious evolution where we create the future of the city instead of letting the city happen, letting the future happen. Which brings me to the question, how is Ingram Micro helping or serving the growth and spread of smart cities?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So one of the things I love about Ingram Micro is the culture of how tenacious, and what kind of brought me to Ingram Micro after my time in the military is how tenacious and obsessive they are about doing the right thing. And it's doing the right thing by the partners and their customers. I've seen firsthand where my company will make sure that the partner and the customer are taken care of at all costs. And I think just culturally, when you mix that into the idea of how to make things better, you really find things that just fit. And one of the ways like Ingram does this is we have programs like that I chair for the Smart Cities initiatives. It's more than just an initiative. It's a collective of resources, people, and tools, all the way from grant writer that will help you write, find, and author grants to find that you really overcome the funding obstacles, right? They'll allow you to get more creative instead of put yourself back into a box. It's about finding the right person inside of a city to have a conversation with. For that, I'm going to brag about where I currently live in the city of Raleigh. They appointed a smart cities manager. If that doesn't show you dedication of someone whose entire job it is to be extremely creative, it's them. So it's how can I make my city better, faster, safer, stronger, more lean, more resilient? I think COVID taught us a lot about what a smart city could be. I was in the service at the time, and I remember I would never have seen the world shutting down the way it did, and the explosiveness and the struggles of getting resources where they needed to be. I think we learned a hard lesson. And I think that's really at the core of what it is when you start talking about, or more than just conceptually an idea of what Ingram stands behind and what it does. is we went to the drawing board and came up with these tools and resources, everything from procurement to finding to um, being tapped into the markets, of understanding what the actual needs are. The investments Ingram has made, even on staff, we bring folks on with amount of experience that I was 20 years in the military, not corporate America. I don't talk like corporate America. I don't speak like corporate America. I don't solve problems like corporate America. And I think that's part of the secret sauce that Ingram brings to the table, especially for the partner, right? To make sure that they're in front of the right spaces, having the right conversations, educated correctly. Um, and it's that true synergy and partnership. That's what I really love about Ingram.
What brought you to Ingram? Why are you working with smart cities at it?
So I think systemically, I really love a challenge. I think that's really what it boils down to, honestly. If it's really simple, it's probably not for me. But no, in all seriousness, I think what brought me to Ingram was actually by happy accident. After my time in the service, I was a badge wearer, I was a gun toter for a very long time, promoted myself through a few different jobs, exposed myself to a lot of different facets and mindsets and perspectives, all the way from the person inside the trenches to the extremely strategic leader who had to make some difficult choices on a daily basis. And one of the core concepts that I learned is you're always evolving, you're always growing. When I came to Ingram, it was ironically because I was in search of that next step. After I retired from the service, it was, what do I need to do? What do I need to grow? How do I need to evolve? And it was a natural evolution. I first partnered with some mental health clinics because I have this desire to help grow and help people. And then, ironically, through that, I really learned that I love business and I love the design of the challenge. Don't get me wrong, I love helping people, but when you help people with business and you help people in their communities, it seems almost a natural fit. So I took on the challenge of coming in Ingram Micro, something completely new, very foreign. Um, and then when I jumped into smart cities, it was a natural fit. I have a law enforcement background. I started initially inside the justice and public safety domain. One of the unique cultures or areas, and what I love about smart cities is there's subcultures, right? Just like it was in the military. EMS guys, the first responders, they have their own. The fire, we used to call them fire dogs, but the firemen, fire chiefs, or whatever, they have their own. Police chiefs, we have our own. And that's just on the first responder community. Then you start rolling in community leaders, organizers, the nonprofit community side of things. It's such an incredible melting pot. And I think sharing smart cities was the natural evolution. Really culminated in taking all these pieces together, something I learned when I was in DC, take them together and figuring out, hey, what does great look like? Not just what does good look like or good enough. Doesn't always happen that way. Honestly, sometimes the challenges are a little too steep. And then sometimes you really got to get good at asking the right questions as opposed to finding the good answers. I learned that a long time ago that my role is in rooms like this where, much like yourself, it's about asking the really good questions. When you feel like you have to become a student in order to know what questions to even ask, right? So that's what I really enjoy about Smart City. And that's how I ended up here. Um, yeah. Some people would say it would be serendipitous, but if you had told me 5 years ago this is where I'd be, I would have told you absolutely not. But it's a natural fit.
And we are happy to have you here because what you are doing is very important. Now, we have been talking about this, but what are the biggest challenges in the smart cities area?
Yeah, I think it's a congruence of events that I think the biggest challenge is there's too many, if I'm being honest. I had a client one ask me very bluntly, what's the biggest challenge a smart cities faces? I said, the fact that they're trying to be a smart city is the biggest challenge. And what you're going to do is you're going to start unmasking where things either have gone wrong or where things are broken or infrastructure just isn't there. It's going to require too much or this or that. In simplest terms, I really believe the biggest challenge we have is There's so many competing priorities by design. I think cities, and just, I would say cities are very dynamic. They're very complex. I think that they're supposed to be like that because that's who we are as humans. We can create incredible complex systems. And then they get a little too complex and we need some simplicity. I think AI is a natural evolution of how we can then start to simplify about these complexities we have. If we're able to understand that, then I believe, and I've seen it before in multitude of areas, once you can define the problem, a well-defined problem is half solved. I don't know whose real quote that was, but I'll give them credit. But it really boils down to there's just too many problems right at the bat, and it's not well defined. I think that's the biggest challenge a smart city has.
Is the problem that there are too many questions or too many challenges, or that we are not defining them properly at the beginning when we want to tackle?
Good point. I really think we're not defining them well. If I walk into a police chief and I say, Chief, what's the biggest problem you have in your agency? He's going to tell me within 30 seconds because he deals with it and tackles with it every day. That same challenge is not the same challenge that a 911 dispatch operator or even an education technology provider or a high school superintendent faces. It's probably the farthest thing from their minds. So that's what I don't believe we've done. And I don't believe that data is there for us to be able to simplify that, to be able to find the challenge, because aggregating information across streams, and this isn't new no matter who we are as humans, it happens in our own households. I think I came from a very large family, and you ask anybody in the family where somebody else was, you get a different story all the time. Hey, where did you see dad last? And everybody had their own example, right? Or, hey, where did you last see, where'd you put your fill in the blank? And it depends on time and information and where you're at. So I think people respond to what they is. I just don't think we have the capability as of yet, at least I haven't seen it yet, of aggregating that data, really looking at it through a couple of different filtered lenses that simplify what we're actually looking at to be able to define a problem. I think once we do, we're going to see an explosion of what a smart cities could be overnight, because we're able to put focus, energy, and effort and resources into those problem areas. We've proven it time and time again of once we do that, we solve it. So that's, I think, where from what I've seen, where we're at.
Amazing that you are bringing, which I understand, a spectrum on data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And that we are at the beginning of the spectrum around data and information, and we haven't really created knowledge and we haven't really created wisdom just yet. Which could be a big opportunity if we learn how to do that. So what are the biggest opportunities? What you can see for smart cities?
Yeah, I think the creativity hasn't stopped. I have clients and partners of Ingram Micro all day, every day, incredible, intelligent people solving problems at a city level all the time. And it's incredible to have a conversation and then to be in a room with all these decision makers and ask the question, okay, all right, guys, what else? Not what our problems are there. It's what's next for you? And they're like, no, now we just get back to work. Or do we need to work differently so this problem will never happen again? It came up a lot in my time in the service. What processes can we put in place? What things can we learn from? What experiences can we draw from? And the other part of that is I think it's the power of people and the power of perspectives and the power of experiences. That's where I believe the biggest opportunity is. I've learned very briefly or very quickly, I had to learn that I can only learn so much from a book. I can only learn so much from my own experiences. I needed to talk to other humans to learn faster. And I think that us in this journey of data collection is absolutely phenomenal because we're going to be able to learn from other humans so much faster. And then it's about bringing the right people in the room. Okay. And it may not be just the city council as it sits up today. It may be someone completely different or different perspectives that where that data points to, you're like, oh, wow, we didn't see that one coming a mile away. And as a leader myself, I saw that, I learned that, humbled myself pretty quick when I thought I was the smartest person in the room. You learn very fast that you're in the wrong room if that's a real thing. Um, and I think that's where it is. So I think that's where our biggest opportunity is. While we're taking this time ingesting the data, evolving technology, really integrating and interweaving things as a connective tissue, it's the leader's responsibilities to start looking around of, all right, who's the change agents that are within our organization? Who's the change agents within, whether it be a public sector entity, first responder community, the community outreach coordinators at your local clinic? Is it the hospital administrators who are bringing everybody to get? Those are change agents. Those are the folks you should be on the radar for, um, because they're going to see the bigger perspective. They're going to be that connective tissue that's going to help you understand, is this a healthcare problem? Is it a human problem? There's a lot there, but that's where I see the opportunities in each other. I think we still have some evolution of technology to do too. I think there's a lot of data that doesn't exist. So it means it's a lot of an incomplete picture.
Does Ingram Micro help with this urban evolution and incomplete picture?
Yeah, that's a great point. So what I love about Ingram Micro is because we have partners of all walks of life. In an average day, I can be having a conversation to a first responder or a police chief, and then the next conversation I'm talking to a student administrator or someone who only focuses on how teachers and insurance works. So it's a diverse network that Ingram Micro has. And what I love about this is because of our positions and the way we're set up when we were verticalized, smart cities is very diverse. It's no coincidence that I work with educators, first responders, healthcare professionals as an ad hoc aside sometimes because of that nexus. And then even working with DoD partners. And then it's ironic when you start introducing these partners and these concepts of these CEOs to each other and the amount of synergy that gets created and what they learn from. They literally have conversations like, I didn't realize you even existed. I'm like, of course, there's 50 billion people in the world. Of course you didn't know that existed. But now that you do, and now that you realize you have the same passions and the same synergy of solving some of the difficult problems, how can we grow together faster? I have seen Ingram Micro at the cornerstone of those conversations in my time here in the last 2 years, almost routinely, almost like it's in part of the DNA of who Ingram Micro has become. It's that connective tissue. And then, of course, when it's, hey, I need some more resources, or hey, we went as far as we could. That's one of the things that we really shine on. And I'm pretty proud of, especially what my team does.
And please keep up this good work, because this kind of bridging and bringing together those experts into one table and getting across these silos, in my opinion, is freaking important to create better future for cities. Brian, you have been very generous with your time and answers, and it's a very interesting conversation. I could ask you for hours, which is good because we will have future podcasts together and with your partners. So now I will not ask you about a project which you would be proud of, because we will bring on these projects on the podcast talking about that. And I want to be respectful of your evening. So do you have any closing comments or requests for the audience?
I would say this. I would say a picture perfect message was, it's no coincidence that in order to create something that's never been, you can't do it by yourself. As Ingram Micro, there's a reason we have partners, right? Could we try to do it by ourselves? Absolutely. I think anybody could, but I think the human element of anybody who's ever tried to do that on their own, hey, I can do it all. As a human, you realize, and this is probably going back to my mental health side, but you realize that's not really how life is supposed to work. So one of the projects I really enjoyed of watching the school system completely transform, because they had a question of, hey, where can I update my air conditioning? I need a new HVAC system. Ingram, can you help? Sure, we can help. But then somebody was asked a question. It wasn't, what else can I give you? What else can I do for you? It was, why are you updating your HVAC? What is the purpose? They asked that really good question. it evolved into an entire transformation that increased cybersecurity, ensured there was no closed schools in a very hot portion of the country, not just because of HVAC. It also increased the teachers' capacities, not just because of HVAC, but they tied that in to an entire student information systems. And now they're looking at ingesting cameras and AI into multiple things. So that question kickstarted an entire brainstorming session that probably gave those school administrators, I was part of that little of their brainstorming session. I think they probably gave themselves enough projects to fill the next 20 years from just one or two sessions. But you could see the passion like dripping from these people and the energy. And they were no longer there asking about how to solve a problem. They were asking about what else can we do and what else is possible. So that's where I think that mindset came from. The only thing I ask for is people to keep asking really good questions. Learn enough about a smart city. Don't take with the status quo. If you have always done it, then it's time to look at something different. Use the advancements of technology to increase, if as a community leader in any capacity, at any level, how can not just you get better, how can the community get better? How can you connect your technology or you connect your needs or your resources to someone you've never met before? It's technology. We've seen that from a social platform. We've seen that from people ingesting of how they meet each other across the world. So that's a big takeaway, is just keep asking really good questions.
Thank you so much, Brian.
You're welcome.
If you want to learn more about Brian, links will be provided in the show notes, and the Smart Cities Council website can inform you even more. What have you learned from this interview? What questions do you have after listening to Brian? What would you like to know more about? Let us know on the Smart Cities Council website or on LinkedIn. Look out for other episodes and topical discussions, and thanks for tuning in.